Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing story, but this time coming to us from Canada. We have Ina Nielsen on board today. Ina Nielsen grew up in Ontario, Canada, and had visits from Grace since the age of 4 or 5. Always felt different from her siblings and friends, spent most of her time loving nature and animals. Music was something that came naturally to her and sang in a band for 20 years. She is known as an intuitive, knowing what people are thinking. She spent 50 years doing readings and speaking to her clients' deceased family members at the request of the Greys. Her love for the Greys is what makes her defend them. So, Ina, thank you so much for coming on board today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Now, you've got a really an amazing story, and I'm really anxious to get into it. I know that you're a generational abductee, that your dad started having experiences in Denmark, and he eventually came over to Canada. So, so you're a Canadian born. So I think your experiences started off roughly at the age of 5. So yeah, can you get into what happened?
Um, well, I can distinctly remember it. I'll never forget being 5 years old. My sister laid in the bed next to me, um, in separate beds, and so I woke up and there were two little grays standing beside me, one a little taller than the other. And of course, it was a little bit scary because I didn't know what they were. And it all I heard from the one was, "It's okay, you'll be okay. We love you." And just hearing that they loved me was enough for me. Felt like my body just completely relaxed. And I believe that was probably one of the first times that they took me um, on board. And I remember waking up on a table in a solid room with like a laser beam going down through my navel, and my reaction was, oh my, oh no, kind of thing, being a little kid, like, what's this going on? And you have to remember, this is 1962. I don't even know that we had lasers back then. Pardon me. And the next thing I knew, I was out and I woke up in my own bed. I remember waking up in my bed that morning and feeling that my navel was stinging. It felt like it was on fire. But other than that, I was okay. After that, it was like all I kept thinking about, I called them little people then, and it was like I looked for them all the time. Um, but hearing those words, "I love you," was enough for me to, like, I I loved everything after that. I loved nature. I loved the water. I loved, all animals. I would sing to the birds, and I felt that I was communicating with all nature, and
So,
I
so,
think that was something that they taught me.
so this happened in Brampton, Ontario.
Yes.
Wow. So did your sister ever wake up during that episode?
Nope. And I actually even asked her because it took me years to confide in her about it. And I know her and her husband thought I was nuts, but I didn't care. Um, but she said, no, I don't remember anything ever happening. I just remember being able to move my eyeballs and think, why can't she see them? But she was sound asleep.
Were you paralyzed?
Yeah, yeah.
So did you remember? So did you black out when they appeared after to you and you woke up on the craft?
Um, they they that was the thing. I remember it was waking up on the craft. I don't remember seeing anybody around me, just that laser beam, and thinking, you know, I was more about, what is this thing going, this light going into my navel. I couldn't understand that because, being 5, and um yeah, I can't remember much more than that because it felt like they went, oh, she's awake, not, put her back out again or whatever it was that they did. But I just remember waking up my bed the next morning and feeling that.
Wow. Could you describe, the bed that you were on?
It was just a little single bed, uh, um, a little headboard, and an end board at the end, like it was one of those typical little kids' beds, you know.
Uh,
Yeah.
was there a lot of lighting?
No, it was actually it was quite dark, but I remember I could see them clear as a bell.
Okay, so the Greys were there too. You saw them.
Yeah, yeah.
How,
Oh,
how,
on the ship, you
yeah, on
mean?
the ship, yeah.
Oh, it was very bright. It was very bright. Sorry, I thought you meant in the bed.
So
Yeah.
could you describe what you were seeing?
It just felt like it was I don't know if it was metal, pardon me, like a glossy metal, and the machine that did the light that put the light into my navel, it was like a cone shape. And I just remember thinking, oh God, what's going on? Because I had no idea what was happening. Um, and the light was coming out of that cone from the ceiling.
So there wasn't anyone in the room with you.
Not that I remember.
Okay. When you woke up the next day, perhaps, and your belly button was sore, did you see if there was any blood?
I I don't think that there was any blood at all. Like it just really stung. Yeah.
And was that was it during that time that you confided to your mom that something happened?
No, that was later in the years. That was when I was 25 when that
Okay.
happened.
Okay. Okay. So that happened at the Brampton house. I believe that you also had a sequence where you saw circles, perhaps?
Yeah, that was the other thing, and um, I we had a bay window there, and there was a field across the road, and a few times I had seen lights across the road going back and forth and up and down, and but this one particular night, when I was looking out, I literally saw all these balls of light coming towards me at the window and just standing there screaming because I had no idea what was going on. My mother came running into the living room and said, what's the matter? What's the matter? And I said, look at them. Look at them. They're coming at me. And she said there was nothing. She couldn't see them, but I could see them. And I still to this day believe I saw what I saw. Um, I'm just not sure exactly what they were, but um, yeah, I think at that point my mother had called the doctor the next day and said something's wrong with my daughter. But the doctor just it was like, oh no, it's just a kid's imagination. Don't worry about it. So
Yeah, well, I do believe you. When I called in my two UFOs, well, the first one, I was outside with my former fiance, and it came in at maybe like 30 feet above the power line. So like at least 10 foot wide, like oval shaped, orange red orb ship.
yeah,
So like, at least 10 feet wide, and it came just above the power lines, and it glided, no sound, and everybody was outside, but we're the only two that were contacting it, and no one around us ever reacted to it.
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I think that sometimes they only want like it's I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I've been in the same situation where I've seen one, although I did bring someone outside with me and said, "Can you see it?" And this person was in total shock, going, "I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is." And he was in shock, and all I kept saying was, "Yeah, but you can see it, right? You see it." He said, "Yes." It made absolutely no sound. It was just hovering above the farmhouse, and it was enormous, and there was no windows, no lights. It was just this big metallic, like dull gray, And I'm standing there looking at cars driving by, and I'm thinking, nobody, why can't anybody see this? But I always say that if people are focused on driving, they're looking straight ahead. If people are focused on walking, they're looking straight ahead or down. Not most people don't look up, and I've always had the theory that you're not going to see anything unless you're looking up, right? So
So when did this happen?
that one happened in, it was 1990. I believe it was about 1990. No, sorry, 2001. That was 2001.
Where were you at the time?
That was in Cheltenham, which is part of Caledon, Ontario.
Okay.
And there was many sightings in Cheltenham, and apparently other people had seen them too, but I didn't learn about it till years later. It appeared above. I was in a small apartment building. It was like it was six apartments in this old unit, and there was a farmhouse directly across from my living room window, and it was hovering above the farmhouse. And I saw it out my window, and I thought, I I can't believe what I'm seeing. And I had been seeing lights going up and down at night over there, but this was the first time I'd seen something during the day. And it was about 6:30 at night, and I called my neighbor, and she wasn't there, and it was her husband, and I said, "Could you please do me a favor? I need you to come outside with me." And it was hovering for this length of time. So we both went down the stairs, and walked out to the side of the building, and I pointed, and I said, "Can you see that?" And he, like I said, he was in shock. Um, his father was a minister, believe it or not, so I think he was a little bit like that, kind of freaked him out. And I'm not sure, because he didn't even tell his wife about the experience. I think that's how much shock he was in. And but it made no sound. And when somebody pulled in behind us, we both turned to look, and I went, "Look." And when I pointed back up, it was gone. No sound, no nothing. But it was enormous. It was beautiful.
Could you gauge the size of it?
Oh, it had to be, I would say it had to be the size of a small football field. Yeah, I'm positive. Like, I know that for a fact. It was huge, and the fact that it was hovering over the farmhouse, the ends of it were still sticking out either end of the farmhouse. It was huge, and I was totally amazed. And of course, back then I didn't have a camera. I don't even think I had a computer yet, to be honest with you. I was the last to get everything.
So
But yeah, it was beautiful. It
what
was
color was
absolutely.
it?
I'm sorry.
What color was it?
It was gray.
Gray. So metallic gray?
Yeah, metallic gray. Like a dull, like it wasn't a shiny gray. It probably could have gone up into the clouds, and nobody would have noticed it because of the color. So yeah, yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, yeah, I've seen like orb ships, like colors. But mine wasn't really radiating any light. It was the contours of the craft were very defined.
yes.
So imagine like a sun, but really up close, moving like just above the power line. So that was really impressive. But yours, wow, amazing. We've skipped a bit ahead. Let's come
Are
back
we?
to again. I think you're in Brampton, and you had an experience with very tall beings in your bedroom, I believe.
Yeah, that was when I was 5 at the same house, where the little Grays came to visit. It was shortly after, maybe within a week or so after that, I remembered waking up and seeing this tall, dark. That's all it was like this black. It was huge and skinny, but long, and tall. Probably for me being in bed, it looked like it was 6 to 7 feet tall, standing at the end of my bed. And I was petrified about that. That one scared me. And I just remember being pulling the blankets up over my face, and I think I was almost hyperventilating because and I tried to pull the covers down to look, and it probably, I don't know how long it was before it went away, but that one scared me. I don't know what that was.
Did it look like a shadow?
Yeah, it did, but but I distinctly remember it being like dark black. Like I could see it in a bedroom, in our bedroom. I mean, there might have been a little bit of um light coming from the hallway, so I might, because I think my parents used to have like a, not a night light because we didn't have those back then either, but there was some kind of light from the outside of our bedroom so that the kids could get up and see where they were going in the middle of the night. But that was scary. That was the only one that ever scared me.
Oh. So they didn't talk to you?
No,
How long did the whole thing last?
I'd say about a good 15 minutes. It stood there.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember when it finally went away, I remember pulling the blankets down and just going, like I ran a mile. Yeah, my
So
heart.
were you paralyzed during that?
Yes, yes. There was no way I could move with that one either.
Wow. So as soon as it left, you gained control.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what happened? So this was also at the age of 5. So what happened between that and your early teens?
Um, well, I I also, just so I can throw this in, I spoke to, I used to have there was a little boy that lived about 5 doors down from me on that same street, and coincidentally, when I posted a picture of one of my UFOs a couple of years ago, he's my friend on Facebook still. So he said, "Oh, I saw one of those. I saw that in Shelburne not long ago, right? Some guys and I." And I said, "Really?" So I said, "Coincident, by any chance, when we were growing up on on that street in Brampton, do you remember seeing anything there?" I said, "With the field across the road." He said, I remember my mother and my aunt standing outside, and they were both pointing up, talking about something. And I came outside," he said, and he said, I said, "What are you doing? What are you looking at?" And he said, it was like they were both like, oh no, we don't, like, okay, get in the house, get in the house. But he said, "I did see a light, Ina. I saw a light." He said, "But they didn't, they just kept saying, we don't know what it was. We don't know what it was." So obviously, I wasn't the only one on that street that had seen something, and so that kind of made me feel good. But at the same time, he also told me that he would have episodes where he was frozen in his bed. So I told him that I think that maybe he might have been an abductee as well, um, but didn't even know it. Since then, we haven't really spoken to each other. I think it kind of freaked him out, but um, I definitely want him to watch this video.
I sure hope so. Yeah. Okay. So nothing happened to you in your early teens?
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
Uh, well, I guess it was when should I go into when I was 13 that I was speaking to my father.
did anything happen to you before that?
Um, as far as having nightmares, I had a lot of what my parents called nightmares. Um, uh, and but I can't really remember much about them. Um, I was quite the little loner when I was little. People used to call me the latchkey kid because I was always by myself, and I spent a lot of time walking railroad tracks and rivers and streams, and I was really like one of those kids. I was one with nature. I just felt like nature was going to look after me, and I always felt like something was watching over me. Um, I remember laying on the grass a couple of different times and looking up and feeling like I didn't belong. Um, and and feeling like that my parents weren't my parents, but I knew my dad was, but I felt like my mother wasn't my mother. It's strange.
Oh.
But I would look up and I would say, you know, I belong up there. Like I just felt like I belonged in this, like up where the stars were. Um, and yeah, I that those were about the only things that I can recall, um, until I, you know, was around 12 or 13.
But let me get into a story about the fact that you thought that your dad, I think, was your real dad. Well, um I had a dream once. I'm in orbit, I'm looking down towards Earth. And I thought at first I thought I was on the moon, but I don't see the moon behind me. But strangely enough, I'm with a lot of people, and we we were being told that we were going to Earth, and everybody was excited. And my mom was really happy. She was beside me. And my dad was beside me, but when I looked at my dad, I saw his face, but I thought to myself, that's not my dad.
Yeah,
So as if my I knew he was my dad, but he was showing himself as my dad, but I thought, no, that's not my dad. So I'm not sure if it was because my dad wasn't much into this, or
yeah.
something else happened. But yeah. Um,
That
so so what happened at the age of 13? Yeah.
that sounds similar to the way that I felt. Like that's, but it was my mother that I didn't see as my
Okay.
as my my mother. But my father, I felt I know he's my father. And when I was 13, I remember um, him saying that I had to, in order to become confirmed in the Lutheran Church, that I had to read the Bible. And I thought, oh no, I, we didn't know that I was even dyslexic at the time, but I thought, oh no, okay, I could probably fake it through this book like I did everything in school. And I ended up kind of flipping the pages and came across Ezekiel's wheel. And when it hit me right away, I thought about Ezekiel's wheel. That's a song that we used to sing in Sunday school when I was like 4 or 5. And it was Ezekiel saw the wheel a rolling way in the middle of the air, a wheel within a wheel a rolling. So I automatically I just went, no, this is the Bible. I'm sorry to put it this way, but as a 13-year-old, I thought the Bible's full of it, and I thought I'm not reading anymore. And I went to my dad and I said I don't want to be confirmed anymore, and he said why, and I said because I don't believe it, and he asked me why, and I said well Ezekiel's wheel, and I started explaining it to him how I felt about it, and he said, what do you think it is? And I said, that's a UFO. And he said, how do you know about, basically, how do you know about UFOs? And that's when I confided in him. And I said, Dad, when I was 5, this happened to me. And I was on a ship. I was on a UFO. It was just like that. It was a circle. It was a wheel. It was wheel shaped. And he started to cry, and he said, do they hurt you? Did they hurt you? And I said, no, Dad, they love me. They told me they love me. And I said, why? Why do you say that? He said, because it happened to Daddy too when I was growing up. And he said, they hurt me though. And I said, what do you mean they hurt you? And he said that they put it in his words exactly, because him being European and having the accent, he said, they put a tube in my pee pee. And I went, oh, geez. And I said, but I don't think they meant to hurt you, And he said, well, it hurt me, Ina. So I just said, I'm sorry, Dad. And after that, it was probably in that year that the movie The Chariot of the Gods came out, and my dad said, "We're going to the movies. We're going to go watch this movie together." And we sat at the back of the, at the back seats, and I guess he didn't want people to know we were there for whatever reason. But watching the movie together, I just remember him looking at me every once in a while just to see my reaction, and I was like, "Wow, this is it, Dad. This is exactly how I feel." And he said, "Yeah, me too, Ina." He said, "But don't tell anybody." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Don't tell anybody your story because," he said, "people will think you're crazy." And he said, "That's what they thought about me when I was growing up." And he said, Mummy always said to me, "Don't tell people anything about this because they're going to think you're crazy." So that's why he didn't say anything up until I told him about my experiences.
What else happened to your father?
Um, he just said he was visited, but he thought coming to Canada would make it different. And I think that's what kind of freaked him out was the fact that he he it didn't happen. It continued on with me. Um, uh, uh, he had like should I talk about what I saw off the balcony at that point with his car?
Sure, sure. So this would be in 1973.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
was 1970. No, sorry, that was 1975 or 6.
Okay.
I was about 17 at the time. And this is when I thought, okay, they're still watching him. I mean, it, now I think that way because um, my father worked directly across the road from our apartment building, and he always, for some reason, his car had been parked in a different spot, but he said he wanted to have his spot where we could look down off the balcony and be able to see his car. And I happened to go outside for a cigarette, and I was standing, and I went over to the edge of the balcony to lean into it, and I looked down, and there was at least 5 men going through my dad's car underneath, in his trunk, inside, and this is a car that was locked up. So I don't know how they got into my dad's car. Um, but they were all dressed in, I forget what kind of hat it was. They all had dark hats and long, dark trench coats. And I had no idea who they were. It just scared the heck out of me because I thought, what are they doing to Dad's car? Like, what are they doing? So I ran in the apartment and I phoned my dad and I said, "Dad, there's a bunch of men looking in your car, all over your car. They're doing something in your car." And I said, "You better come over here because something's going on." And by the time my father walked across the street, it was only like a 4-lane street in Brampton. And by the time he got over there, there was nobody there. They were gone. So, um, and of course, you know, I'd never heard about Men in Black until probably the late 80s, 90s, but I would say by the depiction of what I've seen, that's exactly who they were. There's no doubt in my mind.
Freaked out.
Oh yeah, I was absolutely freaked out because and he didn't even go back to work because he was first thing he did after that was have a beer and a shot of whiskey. And I said, "I'm not lying to you." And he said, "No, no, I'm not. I believe you." So he must have known something. I don't think my dad wanted to really talk to me too much about his own experiences because he didn't want to, you know, I, he was probably worried about freaking me out. But I like, I would have rather him say to me, "Ina, they come to visit, they come to see," whatever. I would have rather him said that, but I guess he didn't want to talk about it. It was just something that he was told not to discuss, you know?
Yeah. Well, knowing what you've been through so far, it makes sense that someone would try to look you guys up.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure.
Wow.
And that was the other thing. We pretty much moved. least once a year and a half. With me growing up, we didn't stay in a house very long. And then when I moved out of the house, I did the very same thing, like, never staying in the same place for any amount of time. And I remember the last place I lived in, um, before my son bought his property, I was like, oh my God, I've been here for 5 years. This is the longest I've ever lived in a house in my whole life. And then moving in with my son, he's still there now. I lived there with him for 11 years and he's now been there for 13. So he's on a piece of property where I've been able to, well, I've seen a lot of UFO activity because he's in the country as well. Um, it's easier to see things in when there's no city lights and whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so this happened in the 70s. I know you had an experience in 1992, but did anything happen within those 2 years?
Yeah. When I was 25, that was 1982. I had become very, very ill and was starting to lose a lot of blood. I personally believe it had something to do with chemicals that were being sprayed at the time, like a DDT type of on the grass. So I'd been bleeding for a couple of days, coughing up blood, and the Thursday night, the Thursday night, I ended up going to the hospital on the Friday night, but I started bleeding on the Tuesday, and the night that my sister took me to the hospital was a Friday night, and they called when she got me to the hospital. It was code blue emergency. I had a hemoglobin of 0.3, I think it was actually, and and um, they had to get IVs into me to start pumping blood into me. And this was a Brampton hospital, and they thought they were going to lose me, so they sent me down to Toronto. Now, I had out of body experiences myself in that episode as well. The night that I did go to the hospital, I was looking down at myself in the bed, and I felt somebody was beside me as I was hovering above my bed, and it was like, Ina, if you don't get up now, you're not going to be awake in the morning. So I just remember sitting up in my bed and going out. My sister said, are you ready to go? And that she was the one that took me to the Field Memorial Hospital. And um, they ended up sending me to Wellesley Hospital by ambulance. And that's when I had my next out of body experience. It was on the 401. And I said to the ambulance driver, or the fellow in the back of the ambulance with me, I said, this in a weak voice, tell him to slow down. And he said, pardon? And I said, tell him to slow down. We're on the 427 ramp and I don't like this ramp. It scares me. And he said, and the driver said, what did she just say? And it was like they both went, how the heck does she know where we are? She's laying flat on her back dying. Right? But I could see everything. I was watching the ambulance fly me to Toronto. And when I got to Wellesley Hospital, um, Wellesley Hospital was more about the fact that I was bleeding. But then the next thing I knew, they said, we have to send her to Toronto General Hospital. Can I take a drink?
Yeah, go ahead.
And when I got to Toronto General, it was completely different because I had been in intensive care in both Brampton and Wellesley Hospital. And when they sent me to Toronto General, I ended up in a room that had no windows. It was just 4 white walls. I had a nurse that was sitting beside me, and she kept asking me the odd little question to make sure I was still all there. And the next thing I knew, there was about 5 men that came in my room wearing long white cloaks, and it was like they didn't give a hoot the fact that I had been bleeding to death. They started focusing on what one of them referred to them as scoop marks. These are like scoop marks. And one of them said, what do you mean? And he said, well, they've been done with like a miniature scooper. And he goes, you know how your wife has the melon scooper at home? And I'm laying there thinking, like, what the heck are they? Why are they focused? What are they looking at, right? And so they measured them, and they they measured the width and the depth, and they said, oh yeah, they're all exactly the same. And then he said, and they've all been cauterized. And I know it sounds stupid, but when I was 25, I had no idea what cauterized meant. So it wasn't until 2 weeks later I found out. But they took, um, they ended up wanting to take biopsy. So they took a biopsy from the one on my bicep on my left arm, and they took a biopsy from my right leg, from my shin. And then they had a photographer come in and take pictures of all of them. I had one on my face. I had one on my finger. Um, I had one on my stomach, the one on my biceps, and one on my shin. Um, and yeah, but they only did the two biopsies. So shortly after that, they sent me back to Wellesley Hospital. So, you know, it was kind of odd. But when I got to Wellesley, you know, it took about 4 days, 5 days before I was coherent again and, you know, starting to feel like a normal person again, getting probably about 25 pints of blood. And, um, and then I asked my doctor there, my specialist, I said, you know, did they get the biopsies back from Toronto General? And he just looked at me and said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just thought, really? And I said, well, they took biopsies from me. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. So I kind of left it at that. And I asked my mother about, because my mother was a nurse. I said, you know, I told her what they had done, and I said, they said that they were cauterized. What does that mean? And my mother just went, oh, Ina, where were you? Like, yeah, they're right. Where were you? And I said, Mom, I don't know. I said, but, and she explained what cauterized. She said, that's to stop you from bleeding. So that kind of, that was enough for me to know, okay, so they were trying to find out what was going on with me. I believe the Greys, again, were trying to protect me and look after me. And, you know, the physical doctors down here didn't give a flying leap about my health. It was all about, you know, them trying to experiment on me. But no, I truly believe that the Greys have always been there to protect me and look after me.
Wow. Do you recall when those scoop marks appeared?
Yeah, it was the night before I went into the hospital. So it was 2 days into me bleeding. Like I was losing a lot of blood. And so it was the Thursday night. It had to be the Thursday night. And then it was the Friday night that I ended up going to the hospital.
Wow. So I
Yeah,
guess you got abducted by the Greys and they tried to figure it out what was going on with you and they
yeah,
okay.
trying to help me. Yeah.
Wow. Now, did they look like normal doctors to you?
Um, I felt like they weren't just normal doctors. I felt like they were scientists because it was it was odd. Like even the nurse, the way that she looked at them and like, who are you? You know, why are you asking her all these questions? Leave her alone. Like she was really the nurse was. I'd really like to know who that nurse was because she was trying to defend me and protect me. You know, as far as that goes, she could have been an alien herself protecting me. You
Yeah.
know, or an angel, who knows? But the thing is that I really felt that she was protecting me, and they basically told her to shut up and sit there because they told her to leave the room, and she said no. I'm supposed to be here. I have to be here with her.
Wow.
So yeah,
I interviewed Hillary Porter. She's from the UK and she I think she had something going on with a pregnancy and she eventually she had to go to this hospital and I'm not sure if she had a procedure or she woke up from it and I think she started moving around within that hospital and she got into a room and she opened a cabinet there, and there were a whole bunch of alien fetuses, hybrid fetuses within that cupboard. So there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't know about within our own hospitals. It's
Yeah, yeah, I believe it. And like I that's another thing I do recall as a younger, like probably around that same time in the 80s, where I do recall being on a stretcher, and some type of stretcher, and I remember it being cool, and going, I seeing like tubes, glass tubes. I know I didn't discuss this with you, but I'll tell you now. Glass tubes, there was maybe about, I don't know, 10 or 20 of them, like, and I saw the same thing, but they were like, to me, they were fetuses. And like I mentioned before, I've had a couple of different miscarriages over the years. And I often wondered, the one I did see, the one little fetus, and I thought that looked exactly like the little fetuses that were in these glass tubes of water, and or well, whatever it is that they have them in. But I think that I'm one of those people that they were using my eggs, and I think what they did to my father, they were using his sperm. I really believe that they're trying to make a perfect race, and when I say perfect race, a loving race where there's no hate, because they are all about love. And I'll argue with anybody about that. You know, I love them and they love me.
Ina, could you get into the photos of the squiggly sort of UFOs that you sent me? Because you've in the top left corner there's a like a recreation of sorts of the saucer that UFO that you saw. But tell me what happened with the other UFO images.
The other ones, this is when I was living with my son out in the country in the last, say, it was probably in the last 8 years. Um, and I sat outside all the time in the summer, especially. And I would point out, my son was very, very, um, not that he didn't believe me, but it's like, yeah, yeah, mom, I've seen them before, whatever, kind of thing. But I saw them. They were out there, and it was like, look, they're there. Like you can see them moving. You can see them moving, but you can see the stars in the background. This is a UFO, no doubt in my mind. Um, I've seen I've seen ones that were like orbs. I've seen ones that were V-shaped, and I've seen ones that were again oval, right? And the oval ones, the lights, you can see the lights going around. Um, um, they it was normally I see them in because of the direction of his property. It would have been the southwest sky. Um, they I just felt like they were always out there, and where I live now, I can't see anything because I've got street lights all around me, and it's very difficult to catch anything. Um, um, but I know what I saw. I know what they are. I've been for the last 30 years calling them starships because I refer to them as starships because I would, I go, okay, look, and oh no, that's just a star. No, no, watch it. Just watch. Okay, watch that star, right? And then all of a sudden it would be like, oh my God, it's moving, and I go, exactly. Yeah, stars don't move like that. They don't do that. And and actually my mother, before she died, thank goodness, she finally got to see a UFO too. And that was the night before 9/11. Actually. She happened to be visiting me. And I said, Mom, look, and just what, yeah, that's a star. And I said, no, just keep watching it. And then she started to freak out, going, oh my God, it's going like this and this. And I said, exactly. So she finally got to see it, because before that, my mother called me an atheist, and it just said, you don't believe in anything, you don't believe in God, you don't. And I said, well, with my experiences, I have a hard time believing the way that you want me to believe. You know, that's all.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, I know if I went out to my son's tomorrow night or tonight, I know that I probably see one, you know, because they're there. They're always there. It's just that um people aren't, they just don't focus on the sky as much as, as someone like you or I would, right? And
And
that's what we always say to people: keep looking up, because you're missing out, you
yeah,
know. Yeah,
when you look at the images you sent me, especially the ones that seems to be moving like that, you can clearly see the stars in the background, and they're not moving, so you're not really shaky when you're taking a photo of it.
exactly, exactly.
Let's talk about the other ones, the different colored orbs or light ships that you've sent me.
Yeah,
Were these also taken at the same place?
yes, they were. Yeah. Yeah, if you remember, this is over a span of about 4 to 5 years, right? Um, and um, yeah, like, I mean, if you're sitting there and you're sitting out in the middle of nowhere, and you're looking up and you start seeing some flashing lights, the first thing I'm going to do is take a picture. Now that I have cameras, and and it was like, yeah, I was constantly focusing on taking pictures of all these things, and they were definitely there. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, I feel like sometimes it felt like they were ones that were watching me and my son. um uh and it was just a matter of time before they would come down. They probably waited till later on that night when we were both sleeping. But because I don't think they mean to scare us, like, but it just happens that way, that sometimes they do, because it's
Yeah,
kind of startling, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So Ina, I think you've got an important story to talk about that happened to you in 1992. You were ill.
Yes. I developed some form of muscle disease that, again, the doctors had no idea what it was. But what had happened was, I was laying in bed, and it was just my son and myself. He was still awake, and I'd gone to bed, and it started in the back of my neck. And I remember calling him and saying, something's not right. I don't feel well. And he said, well, maybe you have meningitis, Mom, because it's going around or whatever. And I just said, no, I don't think so. And within 1 hour, it had gone through my whole body, and it had afflicted my every muscle in my body. Well, he wanted to call an ambulance, and I didn't want him to. So he called my parents. My parents came over. It was about 12 midnight, and my mother decided, okay, we'll take you in the morning. If you're not better, we're going to take you to the hospital. I agreed. Well, actually, they didn't take me, but anyways, they my mother decided that she was going to lay down with me on my bed because she was concerned about me. And I was laying there, and all of a sudden I went, Mom, there they are again. She said, what? And I said, the circles. There's the circles. They're coming at me. They're like, I felt like it was like they were just coming at me, and she's going, I don't see them. And I thought, oh, great, here we go again, you know. But she didn't see them, but I know. And again, I felt like they were trying to help me. Um, but there was nothing we could do at that point. My parents called an ambulance in the morning, and I went to the hospital in Brampton, and they they again had to ship me to another hospital, one in Mississauga, and they did some biopsies on me and sent them across Canada and the States, and not one pathologist had a clue what it was. So they still to this day don't know what it is that it was.
Wow.
So, But yeah, I've had a lot of strange things happen to me medically, you know, where I felt that the Greys have been trying to look after me, tried to protect me. Um, and um, I, I I just feel like they're they're more about keeping me alive than doctors down here. Like doctors, it's just they just want to like you're like with how do I put this? I'm the guinea pig when it comes to doctors here because they're just totally fascinated with what's wrong with this girl, right? There's
Mhm.
too many things wrong with this girl.
Mm. Do you
So
believe that some of your related problems might be due to the fact that they might have done something on you? Because I know sometimes women, when it comes to like the the phantom pregnancies, they do have sometimes female related problems down there that happen because of it. So,
something that I've done, you mean?
or no, the Greys might have done to you, perhaps.
Oh, possibly, but like I mean, when you think about it, when you think about a human going up into space, first of all, when they send the guys up the guys up in rockets, they're normally they're normally all dressed in, you know, in gear, whereas if you're being taken and you're going up there, yeah, there could very well be that maybe my muscles were affected by being abducted.
Yeah.
Could possibly be, right? And that's why doctors have no idea what it was. But yeah, I I I don't think that it was done to be malicious or to be mean or anything like that. I
Yeah.
just I've even said that some of these little guys might not necessarily be experienced at what they're doing, just like a doctor is learning. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
they're in university learning to be a doctor. Oh, I just made a boo boo. You know, because I
Mm.
mean, I've woken up on the operating table having my foot surgery. I woke up in the middle of a surgery and went, "Oh," because you know what I mean. And they went, "Oh, she's shit, she's awake." You know, and I guess they knocked me out again. So I mean, we all make mistakes, right?
Funny.
So
I remember Steve Boucher, who lives near where you are, really, Southern Ontario, and when he was climbing on board the UFO, the Greys said, "Don't touch the craft," but he eventually did. And when he came back home,
yeah,
they brought him back. A weird wart grew on his finger, and it took forever to get rid of.
yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
So,
Yeah.
so what happened to you after that? Did anything of consequence happened?
Um. Well, it took me a while to learn how to walk and you know feed myself and um but but I guess with the medication, like they tried all types of medication with me, and they started me on a chemotherapy drug because it was kind of the last resort. But that's the one that got me walking
Oh.
again, you know, and I still get that every week.
So your experiences started to taper off after that?
Um, well, they didn't really because that's when my son had an episode and I knew exactly what was happening.
Oh,
Um, should I tell that
sure.
story?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because it was about 19. Oh no, sorry, that was about 2003, 2004. Um, we were renting in the same little village, Cheltenham, but I'd moved out of the building and I was renting an old farmhouse down the road. Um, and he I always had a night light. I've always had a night light, some kind of light in my house. And um, I remember we had both gone to bed. He like it was a very large. It wasn't a normal hall. It was like a big corridor, and the bedrooms went off of that. And it was probably about 11:30ish at night. he went to bed, I went to bed, we said goodnight, I love you, you know, kind of thing. He was about 20, 21 at the time. And the nightlight, all of a sudden, I'm laying there and I started to feel kind of funny. And the nightlight started to get lighter and lighter. And then all of a sudden it burnt out. And I thought, oh my geez, I'm going to change the bulb. But I'll do that tomorrow night. And in that split second, as soon as that light went out, I just remember my body was frozen and I went, oh no. And the next thing I knew, I saw the most incredible bright light coming from across this corridor from my son's bedroom. And it was the brightest light I think I've ever seen in my whole life. Because I don't recall that happening with me, but I just, all I remember was him yelling out, Mom. And it felt like it took me forever to reply and go, yeah, you know. And I'm laying there and I couldn't move. I couldn't move to even get up and help him. And it was like, and I'm like, I'm not sure how long it took. It could have been an hour or 2 hours, who knows? Because we didn't have clocks or, alarm clocks in our bedroom at the time. And I just remember finally having enough, where all of a sudden the bright light went away and then the night light came back on. It was very strange. And I finally went, Jeremy? And he went, yeah. And I went, are you okay? And he went, yeah. And I just went, okay. I thought, I'm not going to bother him now because he just went through something really scary for him, you know. So I waited till the next day, and when he came downstairs, it was probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was sitting there just frantically waiting for him to come down so I could ask him what happened. And he just went, oh, Mom. Oh, Mom. He said, all of a sudden, this bright light, and I went, I know, I saw it. And he said, it came right through my window, Mom. And he said, the next thing I knew, he says, I don't really remember. He said, I just remember at the end where he said it felt like I was being sucked into my bed. And I thought, oh no, he was probably being thrown back into his bed. But I just went, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I went, okay, no scars or anything. And he kind of looked at me like, why are you asking me this? And I just said, are you okay? Because I figured he would have said something to me, right? If there was anything unusual, although maybe not. But he just said, yeah, I'm just really tired, Mom. It just sucked the energy right out of me. So that that in itself, like I thought, okay, they're taking him. Now they're taking him. And they might have been taking him all along, but that was my first experience witnessing basically that he was being abducted.
Did he
So
confide in you that something else happened to him later on?
um, then I guess it was about 3 years later that we moved again. No, it wasn't even 3 years because I wasn't even in that house for a full year. I had moved further up the road, still called Cheltenham, um, and he was coming home with his girlfriend through Cheltenham, and he phoned me and he said, Mom, go out in the porch, look up to the sky to the right of you, and can you see it? And I'm going, I don't see anything. And he goes, I'm going to be in the driveway any second. Just meet me and, I'm going to pick you up. So they both picked me up. We went back to where he saw it. There was still smoke in the sky. And I'm going, wow, like holy smokes, right? And I had my camera. I Unfortunately, a lot of those pictures are on discs, and I need a computer to load these pictures. But there was smoke in the sky, and we're just sitting there and they're going, when we were coming up the road, we saw something explode in the sky. And I said, really? And they said, oh, yeah, but for the smoke to still be there for that length of time, because it took a couple of minutes for them to come and get me and then come back. And as we were sitting there looking, I looked in the distance, wasn't there another orb in the background? A circular, orb, and I went, oh my God, maybe they either hit each other, because I said, I like, because he said, well, Mom, it was an orb, and then all of a sudden it blew up. So I don't know if it was just that something went wrong with that orb and it just blew up in the sky, and the other orb was coming back to see if it could pick up whoever it was that was in it, because below where it had blown up in the sky, there was a lot of wooded area. So I said to the kids, I said, well, maybe there's a little alien running around in the back there. And he's going, okay, now you're creeping me out. So I said, yeah, but like, why was there two? There was two in the air and one blew up. So I said, it's looking, it was still kind of hovering in the background.
Were they fighting? That's my question. Yeah.
Possibly, but like he said that it was he said, I've never seen anything like it. His girlfriend witnessed it with him. So, um, yeah, and they were asked by a fellow from out Vancouver who was doing a lot of UFO research at the time. He had quite the reputation, and I don't really want to mention his name because he eventually was told to.
Okay.
And but I mean, he had everything from army personnel, airline pilots, just normal people like like me and you. He'd interview them over the phone, or some of them would go right to his house and do these interviews. And she ended up doing a telephone interview with him and telling him about it as well. Um, and but my son wanted nothing to do with it because he's just he's he just can't believe what he's experienced between the two of us, right? Yeah,
It is hard for some, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, did anything happen to you or him after that?
Uh,
Well, you've been
well,
through a lot so far, so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, not that I can remember, or nothing that I can remember about him. I know that there's one thing about him that I've noticed over the years, that he's really about, he wants to be in a completely pitch black bedroom. Like he does not like, I don't know if it's because he figures that if they come again, he'll at least know that they're there, or if it's just that if I'm in a completely pitch black bedroom, I won't be able to see them and it won't bother me, it won't scare me. Because I really do think it scares him a lot more than it does me.
Okay. Did you ever figure out why they're taking you? Because you're like definitely 3 generations right now.
I think it's something about our I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I really believe they're using us for, like my son isn't having any children. Like he'll be 44 in September, and I mean he might have if he was married to somebody different, but he's okay with not having any children. And I don't know if it's subconscious with him that well, I've got children running around, but we just don't know who they are. Because I think that, like I said, I think they used my dad and him for sperm, and I believe that they've used me for my eggs.
Yeah, I believe the same for me. I don't have kids. I'm an
Yeah,
experiencer. My brother has kids.
yeah, yeah,
He's not an experiencer.
yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Because I thought, sometimes like there's maybe a blood factor. Do you know your blood type?
Well, they say that I'm O positive,
Okay. Like me,
which
yeah.
is normal, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Although, uh, who knows whose blood I got when I had the transfusions? I don't know, but no, I believe I'm O positive.
Okay. Okay.
That's what they told me, anyways. As far as my own experiences go, I have no fear of them whatsoever. Anyone that I've ever told about my experiences in my life, um, you know, I've had the odd one say, "Oh God, I don't want them to come and take me." And my comment, my reply is, "Oh, they don't want you anyways. So don't even worry about it." You know, they pick certain people. They pick certain people. It's not just everybody, and it's not that they're hurting us. They're using us for a particular reason. And like I'll say it over and over again. I love them. They've never hurt me. I've had more humans hurt me than I've ever been hurt by any little gray. Um, so you know, that's just how I feel. That's my conclusion.
Mm,
You know,
okay.
I've had no issues with them whatsoever.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ina. I know this interview has been long time coming. We've been working on this for a while, so thank you so much for coming on. I know this is your first time, so you've done awesome.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't think I've talked this much about it in my whole life, so this is good. I got a lot off my chest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Well, to those watching, hope you enjoyed today's interview. I'm your host, Mr. Great, and more interviews coming up, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone.
thanks.
Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Great, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.